Yes, and the reverse grid it is, and it's with the Peugeots in the front, and it is Melia that is on the front row. Or is it Joe Foley? I can't see that number at the moment, but it's Peugeots all the way, and you'll see in the background two cars being left on the grid, and it's Carlo O'Donoghue actually was on pole position, so it's young Carlo O'Donoghue on pole position. Beside him should have been Garrett O'Callaghan, but he did spin on the warm-up lap or had a problem, so he's going to start from the pit lane. That's Garrett O'Callaghan in the background, and already we have a spinner there. Oh goodness me, Richardson going off now. 20 seconds later, the two big Sierras, and we're on board now. You will see just what it's like for these little Peugeots as they head down the back. But these are the big ones, 200 and 300 brake horsepower. John Burns in the mauve and striped car, and a veteran of Mondello, and he doesn't mind being called that, John Keeney in the Sasha. And this is damp conditions here, and this is only a young man, first time on the first front row, but because of the reverse grid situation, it's where you finish the race. The last day is where you start this day, and in second place now it is Mervyn Miller, already damaged there in the middle of the pack. Everybody pushing and shoving is ahead, but a young man here, Carl O'Donoghue, as he comes up the hill for the first time.
So O'Donoghue leads. Miller has come through from what is it, the second row, and he must be a hot favourite. There's Barry Barrable. He's been in the wars. You can see damage on his outside of his car, and we're with Barry now as we head down the straight after the first two leaders. And Barry Barrable now heading down into Lodge Corner, and just about here he goes, heavily on the brakes, understeering possibly. Oh, and he's been spun round. Barrable has been hit there by number 41, David O'Riordan, and now the most uncomfortable position in motor racing, to sit there with the car not moving anywhere and watch the world divide around you.
Yes, you keep your fingers crossed that everybody coming down to the corner can see the yellow flag and realise that there's somebody stuck in the middle of the road. And this is O'Donoghue now under immense pressure from the Impact Ireland car of Mervyn Miller, who was in fourth place. Barrable, who spun that time, a good result. Gareth O'Callaghan, as I said, left the pit lane. He is right out of it at the moment, but that was unfortunate because Gareth getting better at every meeting, but this is the battle up front, and this young man is not being intimidated at the moment by Miller. Much more experience, came from the Ritmos, was a champion in the Fiats, and this is another battle here between Michael Cullen there in third place. He actually started in 10th place, so he's moved up to third. Then it's Dave O'Riordan, then the battle rock. You can see that there is Peugeots all over the place.
And don't forget that behind all this, treading their way through shortly, will be the very powerful, and you can see them just ahead of Barrable, who's had another half spin there. You can see the Cosworths. That is John Keeney ahead of him, and ahead of John Keeney is John Burns. Now, they had a 20-second disadvantage in this race. And you notice that Barrable's car was vibrating a little bit there. I think when he got hit, one of the wheels must be slightly buckled or something, but the car didn't look right to me.
David O'Riordan just losing out there, and someone else spinning. Foley, I think it was, yes. And that there, the little cheeky car in the middle of it, not cheeky, is a Golf 16 valve of Tony Brennan, who actually started in 16th place on the grid. And that is Foley, who spun that time. David O'Riordan went wide, and Foley just lost. You see him, he just gets going again as Barry Barrable in the Memrex car arrives on his bumper. But this is what life is all about in the Peugeots. Don't forget, it's wet out there, very slippy conditions. Young O'Donoghue still under pressure from Mervyn Miller. Third place there, Cullen, then David O'Riordan, then Tony Brennan, who's made his way up right from 16th place on the grid, and he's up into fourth position. A superb drive from Tony.
And another spinner, and that's our friend from 2FM, Gareth O'Callaghan, who's having a pretty miserable day. He started from the pit lane, and now he's wide at the back of the field. Meanwhile, first, second, and third, there's Michael Cullen again, that name that keeps cropping up. He's making his way right from the back of the grid also, and he's got a little bit of a bonus here in rather unfortunate circumstances, because unfortunately Gordon Kellett is not racing today, who leads the over 2000cc championship race in this Dunlop Saloon Car Championship, and he's not racing because of a family bereavement.
We're back with Barry Barrable inside the car, and again you see, look, you can just see how twitchy it is, just getting away. And as Alan said, that nudge in the back mightn't have helped his steering geometry or the back end of the car, but he seems to be really having a vibration as he turns in. It doesn't want to grip. Someone off in the sand there as he just catches up now. understeering all the way through this. You'll see the wheel just suddenly flicks to the right as he gets grip. That was Greg Conway. Now we're back up the front, and that is Michael Cullen going through. Then is David O'Riordan, and he's being followed at the moment by the Des Donnelly Motors sponsored 16 valve VW. Look at John Burns. John Burns just nudging in there, and he just can't get the power down. The power coming out through this back axle. You can even see that the Peugeots are getting better grip than he is.
And David Manley slid off on the outside there as Burns went on the inside. So David Manley, an advanced tyres car, not having a particularly good day. But John Burns, he got to really be careful. He's got so much power in that car, and you can see the minute he puts his foot on the throttle that the tail end just wants to shoot out of control. So he's taking his time really to get up amongst these Peugeots. Meanwhile, Barrable is back amongst the walking wounded now, and there's Manley, who's been off in the grass. We've just passed Gareth O'Callaghan, who's been off a couple of times. Greg Conway, who's had a bash, is up just ahead of David Manley. So Gareth soldiers on with a far from right motor car.
He's turning in there slowly. This is the quickest man out there in the circuit, John Burns, as he makes his way. He's got up through the traffic, and the yellow and red card there of John Keeney, who's getting caught up in the traffic. But that is our leader at the moment. We seem to have lost second place man. Second place man has gone Miller, so that's promoted Michael Cullen to second place, and David O'Riordan is third. Tony Brennan is fourth, and then John Burns making inroads. John Keeney there back in seventh place, but John Burns at the moment looks as there is actually Mervyn Miller back there, so he must have had a spin. So Michael Cullen up into second place with Mervyn Miller in third, and the ever quick John Burns heading for, I would say, something in the top three.
Barrable, meanwhile, deals with the problems at the back of the field, and he's having now quite a battle with David Manley there. Manley, who's just snuck past him on the inside. I don't know who that is just ahead of Manley. Can't quite see the number there, but that's Greg Conway and the very distinctive sort of orange car, and he's pretty wide there, but he's managed to make up a place. He's managed, it must have been a back marker, I think he was going through. So he's got Manley behind him now, so that was a good manoeuvre, Barry Barrable, and he's making some sort of signal there, I think, to the man behind him.
So we're back with our leader, and look who's catching the lead. The very, very experienced Michael Cullen. David O'Riordan, Tony Brennan getting it out of the line as in the background. Michael Cullen at the moment, ever closing forward on the young man. Can O'Donoghue stand the pressure here? But the real danger man you saw in the background there, trying to get by the Volkswagen Golf and the other Peugeot, is John Burns, who would probably be lapping about 3 seconds a lap quicker, but it is very slippy out there. He just can't get the power down. He's got by the Golf, and now he has his sights set on David O'Riordan, which would put him up into third place. A superb drive from John Burns.
Good stuff indeed. He's got plenty of time to do it yet, because we're only on the sixth lap at the moment of this race. There goes John Burns down inside David O'Riordan, but as I say, it's very tricky stuff, and you can see that the car is all the time just trying to break away from it. Gets a bit sideways as it comes out here each time. He just can't get the traction for the rear wheel drive car as it comes up over the hill there. So there's John Burns now taking a late line, as you should, into the S's, then into this tricky right-hander, which is very important because you've got to get your exit speed right up the straight, and he's coming right up on first and second place. And I have to say, Brian, I'm most impressed with Carl O'Donoghue in these conditions. He's really taking this pressure well.
Well, we could see from inside Barry Barrable's car, you know, just how difficult it was to keep these cars on the island, as they say, but this young man is doing it all right. He's not no locking wheels. Cullen, he's letting come in underneath braking. He won't know at the moment about John Burns honing in on top of him, but he will be more inclined just to keep himself right where he is. He's not driving defensively, because once you start to drive defensively, you start to go slower. He's using that outside line as he comes down through here again, leaving plenty of space. And then we go, turn in on the brakes. Cullen getting a little advantage there, but right on Cullen's bumper, believe it or not, is John Burns. So he's got the big hairy Sierra on his bumper. Now, will this make a difference? Donoghue just nipping by that back marker. Now, this is superb. Burns up into third place already. Now, Burns, being the cheeky man that he is, he will try to nip by possibly the two of them, but knowing Cullen, he will try to dive out, nip in behind Burns, and possibly tow himself by O'Donoghue.
Now, Cullen could lose a bit of time here, because because Burns is putting a bit of distance now between him and O'Donoghue. Now, Carl O'Donoghue, whose father was very well known in the rally world, indeed used to navigate for Billy Coleman to many victories, including, I can remember, down in Galway. There is Burns now hitting the front, and you can see the advantage that the Cosworth has in a straight line, and really that's a sensible place to use it on this tricky surface. So Michael Cullen has a lot of work to do now to get back in term with Carl O'Donoghue.
Yes, just lost out slightly there. John came up the inside at Cricket Hill, came out slowly because he couldn't put the power down, and just Cullen lost slightly out on that. But John Burns at the moment, tail out in a big way. It's very, very slippy, obviously, coming out of that bottom section, the Bridgestone section. But Carl O'Donoghue still holding on. Now John Burns beginning to catch one or two back markers now. Smith there in the Corolla, the rear-wheel drive Corolla. And John again letting the car drift out right to the concrete there. And O'Donoghue beautifully through, made his move, but Cullen has got through as well, so no advantage to O'Donoghue. And Cullen is really beginning to put him under pressure now.
Well, of course, the laps are reeling away. We're on the 15th lap at the moment, and time is running out. So there we see John Keeney coming up. There's just 3 laps to go to decide this one. It's going to be undoubtedly John Burns. How far up the field can John Keeney get? That's the next question. He's in, what, 4th, I think it is at the moment. John Keeney just closing in on number 41, David O'Riordan there, who's having a very good afternoon too. There's O'Riordan, the 3rd of the Peugeots. And here comes John Keeney in the Sasha sponsored car. And he's a newcomer, of course, to Saloons, or a returnee, to be more accurate, to Saloons this year from GT Racing, fighting away at the wheel, as we can see from that close shot. And it really is hard work inside these cars. And you can see that the Peugeots are just so much easier to control. And there is Gareth O'Callaghan getting a little bit in the way there for a minute or two. Meanwhile, John Burns goes on his winning way. You can see the advantage he has now over Carl O'Donoghue, but O'Donoghue must be only too well aware that Cullen is looming larger in his mirrors.
Looming larger in the mirror he is, but look at David O'Riordan. He's looking down the inside. O'Donoghue, unfortunately, the old manoeuvre from Michael Cullen got him to move over, and Cullen just comes out around the back of him. 2 of them going down into the hairpin there. These two still bumper to bumper. He's not backing off, I'd say inches off his back bumper. John Keeney getting by David O'Riordan there. So David O'Riordan, number 3 in the Peugeots, but the second place man in the big class is John Keeney. But there is our leader, John Burns. This is a very slippy section. That just can't get the traction there. In fact, one of the Peugeots could get up alongside him when he was passing him there. But John, great rally driver, great car control as he comes out of the Bridgestone there, as watching. A spin there for John Keeney, a spin. He's pulled the exhaust pipe off and this has gone up over the curbs. John Burns at the moment. You can see a slight dry line appearing there, Alan.
And it has to be said that things haven't gone too well for John Keeney since he went to production Saloons this year. He really hasn't got the mastery of this Sierra Cosworth yet. But look at this little battle going on here. Tony Brennan, number 24, and number 41, David O'Riordan, really battling it out. Tony Brennan on the inside. This is for 4th place at the moment. And the battle for first in the Peugeot class still going on. But Michael Cullen, it could be a very important afternoon for him indeed, because with Gordon Kellett not being present, he's going to get maximum points in the Dunlop Championship, the championship that he was most weak in, and this could make this chance of 3 or 4 championships in 1 year a reality.
John Burns, we can't take away from his superb car control, and Michael Cullen also coming up from that way down in the back of the grid. But the man that we have to say is give him the star of the day, O'Donoghue. Just a spin there, a little bit of pressure getting to him, so he's lost 2 places. So David O'Riordan now up into 3rd place. So it's David O'Riordan. Tony Brennan will be there in the golf. So that is going through John Burns. This is David O'Riordan, Michael Cullen, I should say, in 2nd place, and the checkered flag for John Burns. And in the background, Michael Cullen, not that far behind the big Sierra, but the conditions suiting the Peugeots. And in 3rd place, we will see David O'Riordan, and then Tony Brennan, and then Des Donnelly Motors car.
And then John Keeney. John Keeney coming through. And what a pity. There's Carl O'Donoghue, who rather blew it on the last lap, but a man certainly to watch in the future. So we watch